So Emma needs to be in charge. She's old enough to know what she should be doing, and surround herself with people, and then trust in them, and buy into them, and give it time. So that you can see the results. It's not tomorrow, but it will happen.
Forget the rankings, forget the clay record, forget the early exits. The ticket market just told you everything you need to know about Alex Eala, and it did it in just 1 minute. The second her name landed in the Italian Open draw, Rome broke. What she causes every single time she enters a tournament field is a price spike so instant, so insane, that tournament directors don't plan for it, can't predict it, and absolutely cannot ignore it.
Of course, we have to mention Alex Eala, the incredible fandom coming, across the globe, especially from the Filipino community.
Martina Navratilova, 18 Grand Slams, 5 decades inside professional tennis, was shocked. Not politely surprised, not mildly impressed. Shocked in the way that only happens when something defies every framework you've built for understanding this sport. Here's the context no one is giving you. This is May 2026. Eala is ranked 44th. She hasn't passed the second round on clay once this entire season. She lost to Mertens 6-2, 6-1 just last week in Madrid. She pulled out of a challenger in Spain 3 days ago, just to rest before this tournament. And Rome is already treating her like a headline act. The BNP Paribas Open executive said it back in March. We benefit from it. We promote it. Now Italy is learning the same lesson. Subscribe, because the numbers in this video are genuinely unreal. The numbers are real, and they start with one fact that reframes this entire conversation. Over 10 million Filipinos live outside the Philippines. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands. 10 million people scattered across every continent, every time zone, every major city on Earth. And a significant portion of them have spent the last 14 months doing something that the tennis world never saw coming. They have been physically showing up to Indian Wells, to Dubai, to Madrid, to Rome, buying flights, booking hotels, purchasing tickets at whatever price the market demands, just to stand inside the same venue as Alexandra Eala while she plays tennis. That is not a fan base. That is a movement, and movements do not respond to rankings. When the Italian Open draw dropped and Eala's name appeared in the main draw field, the secondary ticket market didn't gradually adjust. It didn't slowly inch upward over a few hours as word spread. The spike was immediate. The kind of immediate that only happens when tens of thousands of people are sitting with their phones open, refreshing the draw page, credit cards already out. Tournament directors in Rome had seen Jasmine Paolini win the title on home soil last year. They had seen the Italian crowd lose its mind for one of their own. They thought they understood what a passionate crowd looked like. They had no framework for this. Philippe Dor, the BNP Paribas Open executive at Indian Wells in March, was blunt about what Eala does to a venue. We love every minute of it, we benefit from it, we promote it. He wasn't being generous, he was being accurate. The tournament had posted a single day-in-the-life video featuring Eala on their YouTube channel during Indian Wells week. It became the most viewed piece of content the tournament produced that entire year. And it wasn't close. 6 hours before her second-round match against Diana Yastremska, fans were already forming lines outside Stadium 3. Filipino flags, Eala fan club shirts, people who had driven 2 hours from Los Angeles just for the chance to watch her warm up. One fan at Indian Wells, Andrew Rivera, said it plainly to a journalist covering the scene, "This is the most Filipinos I've ever seen at this tournament." Rome is about to beat that record. Now here is where Martina Navratilova enters this story properly, not as a headline, but as the most credible witness available to what is happening in women's tennis right now. Navratilova does not hand out praise carelessly. She spent decades as one of the most analytically sharp voices in the sport, and she has never been known for softening her assessments to spare feelings. When she spoke to the WTA ahead of Indian Wells in March 2026, she gave Eala a genuine technical breakdown. She's crafty, she's a good lefty, she uses her variety nicely. Then came the honest part. I think where she can improve the most is her serve, or make it pay off more. She needs a bigger serve and bigger kick. She is slight of build, so it's harder for her to absorb all that pace. But I think she can beef up a little and punch up that serve. That is a measured, professional, Respectful critique from someone who knows exactly what it takes to survive at the highest level of women's tennis. Navratilova was not dismissing Eala, she was assessing her the same way she would assess any promising young player, with clear eyes and no sentimentality. But here is the part that shocked Navratilova. It wasn't the tennis, it was what the tennis was doing to the business of tennis. Eala walks into the Italian Open this week ranked 44th in the world, without a single clay court win beyond the second round in 2026, coming off one of her heavier defeats of the season against Elise Mertens in Madrid. 6-2, 6-1, a scoreline that left very little room for interpretation. She skipped the WTA 125 Catalonia Open entirely, withdrawing 3 days ago to rest before Rome. On pure tennis metrics, she is not the story of this tournament. Aryna Sabalenka is the top seed and the world number 1. Elena Rybakina is seeded second. Iga Swiatek, a 3-time Italian Open champion, is fourth. Coco Gauff is third. Jasmine Paolini is the defending champion, seeded ninth on home soil, with an entire nation behind her. And yet the ticket market moved hardest for Eala. That reality is what no framework in professional tennis was built to process. Navratilova has lived through every commercial era of the women's game. She watched Billie Jean King turn a sport into a political statement. She watched Steffi Graf and Monica Seles turn it into a global entertainment product. She watched Serena Williams turn it into a cultural institution. She understands, better than almost anyone alive, how star power translates into ticket demand. What she had not seen was a player ranked 44th, with no clay titles and a losing record on the surface this season, cause a price spike at a WTA 1000 event the moment her name hit the draw sheet. That specific combination had never existed before. It defied the established logic of how commercial value works in professional tennis, where ranking, results, and titles have always been the primary drivers of demand. Eala has rewritten that equation entirely. The Australian Open in January gave the first major signal of what was coming. The BBC sent a reporter to Melbourne Park for her first-round match against Alicia Parks. The report that came back described thousands of Filipinos creating a logjam outside Court 6, with a line stretching several hundred yards through the grounds. Eala lost that match. The crowd stayed anyway, roaring through 3 sets, treating a first-round exit at a Grand Slam like it was a title run. Tournament director Craig Tiley later acknowledged the scheduling had underestimated the demand, a point Navratilova specifically raised in public, suggesting the Australian Open had made a mistake by putting Eala on a court that couldn't hold the crowd she was guaranteed to bring. Dubai in February was a full escalation. Eala sold out every single match across her quarterfinal run. She beat world number 8 Jasmine Paolini 6-1, 7-6 in the third round, walking out to a crowd that was, in her own words, Filipinos for days. Coco Gauff, one of the most genuinely popular players on the women's tour, played Eala in the quarterfinals at Dubai, and afterwards addressed the crowd specifically, acknowledging that she had never seen the stadium that full in all her years playing the tournament. That comment from Gauff is not a minor footnote. Gauff has played Dubai multiple times. She is a Grand Slam champion. She has her own passionate fan base. For her to single out the atmosphere in an Eala match as something she had never witnessed before at that venue speaks to the specific, concentrated intensity that follows Eala from city to city. Indian Wells in March turned that intensity into a documented commercial phenomenon. The tournament's own executives were publicly celebrating her presence. Novak Djokovic, watching the circus of fans and attention surrounding Eala's matches, called it a good problem to have. Andy Roddick was equally direct. This is the type of story you cheer for because it's great for tennis. The Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart in April, where Eala lost in the first round to Leylah Fernandez, still produced a fan engagement session where tournament organizers officially declared her autograph the most wanted in the entire venue. She had already been eliminated. The fans were still there, still buying tickets, still treating the venue like a destination worth visiting regardless of the result. That is the specific dynamic that makes the Italian Open ticket spike so significant. It is not about Eala winning. It is not contingent on a deep run. The spike happened the moment she was confirmed in the draw. before a single ball was struck, before anyone knew who she would face in the first round, before there was any sporting reason to project optimism about her chances on a clay surface where she has genuinely struggled this season. The demand is presence-based, not performance-based. That has never been true of any player ranked 44th in the world, ever. For Navratilova, a woman who spent decades arguing that women's tennis deserved equal prize money, equal broadcast time, and equal commercial respect, the Eala phenomenon is genuinely historic in its implications. The Tennis Gazette reported in February that tournament organizers had already concluded something remarkable. If Eala ever needed a wild card in the future, despite her ranking being insufficient for direct entry, no tournament would hesitate for a second. The financial return on her attendance far outweighs the cost of the entry spot. That calculation, applied to a player ranked outside the top 40, represents a fundamental shift in how the women's game prices its own assets. Eala herself has been precise about what she thinks is happening. In Dubai, she said she feels really privileged and thankful to be introducing women's tennis to a new demographic. That framing matters. She is not just bringing existing tennis fans to tournaments. She is converting people who had never bought a tennis ticket in their lives into paying customers who will cross time zones and book international flights to sit inside a stadium and watch her play. The WTA recognized this in November 2025 when it announced the creation of the Philippine Women's Open, the country's first ever WTA event. Tickets for the final sold out before Eala had even confirmed whether she would participate. That is the commercial gravity she carries. Rome this week has roughly 10,500 seats at the Pietrangeli Stadium. The Foro Italico complex sits beside the Tiber River, surrounded by pine trees and marble statues, one of the genuinely beautiful venues in professional tennis. It has hosted every great clay court player in the history of the sport. It knows what a packed house looks like. But the mix it is about to experience, Italian fans backing Paolini, the established global audiences for Sabalenka and Swiatek, and then the specific, concentrated, financially committed Filipino diaspora that travels internationally to watch Eala, is unlike any crowd combination the Foro Italico has processed before. The price spike happened in 1 minute because the decision to attend was already made long before the draw was published. The draw just provided the official confirmation that Eala would be there. Everything else, the flights, the hotels, the budget for resale tickets at whatever the market demanded, had already been calculated and accepted. That is not impulsive fan behavior. That is organized, deliberate, financially committed support at a scale that professional tennis venues in Europe are not structurally prepared for. Navratilova was shocked because the sport she spent 50 years inside just produced something it had never produced before. A player whose ticket market moves faster and harder than players ranked 30 places above her. A fan base that treats clay season losses as irrelevant information. A commercial force that operates completely independently of the WTA ranking system. And it is only getting stronger. Eala turns 21 in May. She is still getting physically stronger, still developing the serve Navratilova identified as her ceiling, still learning how to manage energy across a full clay swing without burning out. The tennis is going to improve. The results are going to come. When they do, when the ranking climbs back toward the top 30 where she sat in March, when the clay record starts reflecting the talent level that beat Swiatek, Keys, and Ostapenko all in straight sets, the ticket market is going to do something that will make this Italian Open spike look modest by comparison. That is the real story underneath the headline. Not just one price spike, not just one shocked legend. A structural change in how women's tennis generates crowd demand, driven by a 20-year-old from the Philippines who hasn't even reached her peak yet. If this video gave you a perspective you haven't read anywhere else, subscribe to the channel right now. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the coverage from Rome this week, because whatever happens inside that draw, the story outside the court is already one of the most fascinating things happening in professional tennis in 2026.